Welcome back everyone, and thank you so much for tuning in, because today we are about to dive into one of the most fascinating, mind-blowing, and unbelievable stories in the world of rare coins. A story that shows us once again how a coin that was struck for everyday use, a coin that millions of people handled without giving it a second thought, can turn out to be worth a fortune. And this time we are talking about none other than the incredible 1986 Washington quarter dollar that has stunned the collecting world by being valued at a staggering $120 million because of the extraordinary and extremely rare minting errors and striking mistakes it carries, making it not just a coin but a legend in numismatics. And the best part about stories like this is that they remind us that treasures could still be hiding in plain sight, that even pocket change can hold life-changing surprises if you know what to look for. And when it comes to this 1986 quarter, the story is absolutely spectacular, because at first glance it might look like an ordinary Washington quarter minted at the Denver Mint, one of the hundreds of millions struck that year for circulation. But when you take a closer look at this particular coin, you see a perfect storm of errors that make it one of the most unique and valuable coins ever produced. So let's break down why this coin is worth $120 million, what makes it so extraordinary, and what possibilities exist to explain how such an incredible mint error could have happened. And to do that we need to start with a little bit of context, because the Washington quarter has been an important part of American coinage since 1932, designed to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth, and by 1986 the design was already long established, with Washington's portrait on the obverse and the heraldic eagle on the reverse, struck in a copper nickel-clad composition rather than silver, which had been discontinued in quarters after 1964, and in 1986 the Denver Mint struck hundreds of millions of these quarters, making them one of the most common modern coins out there. But among that sea of ordinary quarters, one example was struck that was so unusual, so filled with minting mistakes, that it transformed into a one-of-a-kind masterpiece now considered worth $120 million. And the first thing that stands out about this coin is that it is a dramatic double die obverse, with the inscriptions, "In God We Trust," "Liberty," and the date 1986 all showing bold doubling that can be seen with the naked eye. And double die errors are among the most famous and sought after in the hobby, because they result from a misalignment during the die hubbing process. And when that doubling is strong and obvious as it is here, collectors go crazy for it. But the story doesn't end there, because this 1986 quarter also features an incredible off-center strike, where the design is shifted nearly 50% to one side, leaving a large blank crescent on the coin but still keeping the date and mint mark visible. And off-center strikes of that magnitude that also preserve the full date and mint mark are exceedingly rare, making this coin even more desirable. And then we come to one of the most jaw-dropping features of all, the fact that this coin was struck on the wrong planchet. Because instead of being struck on the standard copper nickel-clad quarter planchet, it was struck on a leftover planchet intended for a $half, giving it the wrong weight, wrong size, and a striking appearance that immediately sets it apart. And wrong planchet errors are some of the rarest and most desirable types of mint mistakes, especially when combined with major errors like double dies and off-center strikes. And to make things even more extraordinary, this 1986 quarter also shows multiple die cracks running across Washington's portrait and through the eagle on the reverse, raised lines of metal that look like lightning bolts etched into the coin, which only add to its uniqueness. And on top of that, there are lamination errors on the surface, where impurities in the metal caused parts of the surface to peel and flake, giving the coin a jagged, textured look that no other coin has. And when you put all of these errors together, you have a coin that is essentially a showcase of minting mistakes: a double die, off-center strike, wrong planchet, die cracks, and lamination errors all rolled into one. And the odds of all those errors occurring together on a single coin are so astronomically low that it is almost impossible to believe. Yet somehow it happened. And that is what makes this coin worth $120 million. Because in the world of collectibles, rarity is everything. And when you have a coin that is not only rare but almost certainly unique, you have something that collectors and investors will fight fiercely to own, driving the value to astronomical heights, and the possibilities of how this coin could have come into existence are fascinating to consider. Maybe a $50 planchet got mixed in with the quarter blanks at the Denver Mint in 1986. Maybe the dies were already flawed from a doubled hubbing. Maybe the planchet was improperly centered. And maybe the strike pressure caused die cracks and lamination flaws to appear. And all of this could have happened within just a fraction of a second, producing a coin that should not exist but does, and that miraculous convergence of mistakes is what makes it so legendary, and the story of how it was discovered only adds to the allure, because perhaps it circulated briefly, passing from hand to hand before someone sharp-eyed noticed its strange features and pulled it aside. Or maybe it was caught almost immediately and tucked away in a collection. But however it was found, once it was authenticated and graded by experts, its fame spread rapidly through the numismatic community, and as word of its existence grew, so did its value, with collectors and investors clamoring for the chance to own what is now considered one of the greatest modern rarities in American coinage, and that is why it is valued at $120 million today. Not only because of the incredible errors it displays but also because it represents the dream of every collector. The dream of finding a life-changing treasure in ordinary change. The dream of turning a simple coin into something legendary. And that is what makes stories like this so exciting, because they remind us all to pay closer attention, to look carefully at the coins we encounter, to search our change jars, our old collections, our inherited boxes of coins, because you never know when something extraordinary might be waiting. And the 1986 D Washington quarter worth $120 million is the ultimate proof of that, showing that minting mistakes can turn into masterpieces, that imperfections can be more valuable than perfection, and that the most ordinary objects can sometimes carry the most extraordinary stories. And as we reflect on this coin, it inspires us to dream, to hope, and to keep searching, because who knows, the next great discovery could be out there right now in someone's pocket, waiting to be noticed, waiting to change lives. And that is why this coin will forever stand as one of the most iconic, valuable, and unforgettable coins in history, a 1986 D quarter that rose from being an ordinary piece of change to a legendary treasure worth $120 million, and a shining example of how numismatics combines history, chance, rarity, and human fascination into something truly magical. Next, 1983 D quarter dollar. Today, because what we are about to explore will absolutely blow your mind. It is one of those incredible stories in the world of rare coins that take something so ordinary, something so many of us have held in our hands without a second thought, and shows how a simple mistake at the mint can transform that everyday coin into a multi-million-dollar treasure. And today's story is all about the 1983 D Washington quarter, a coin struck at the Denver Mint during a year when hundreds of millions of quarters were produced for circulation. Yet among all of those countless coins there exists one example that stands apart so dramatically, so impossibly rare and valuable that it is now considered worth a staggering $30 million because of the extraordinary errors and minting mistakes it carries. And when we talk about the magic of coin collecting and the reason people all over the world are fascinated by it, this coin is the perfect example, because it is a coin that was never intended to exist, a coin born of error and imperfection, and yet because of those very flaws it has become one of the most valuable and legendary pieces in modern numismatic history. And before we dive into the details of the errors themselves, let's take a moment to understand the background. Because the Washington quarter design had already been circulating for more than 50 years by the time 1983 came around, with George Washington's profile on the obverse and the heraldic eagle on the reverse, struck in the copper nickel-clad composition rather than silver, which had been removed from circulation quarters after 1964. And in 1983 the Denver Mint struck hundreds of millions of these coins with the D Mint mark, making them among the most common of modern issues. Yet despite this ocean of ordinary coins, the one we are focusing on today turned out to be unlike any other. A true one-of-a-kind piece that brings together multiple minting eras in a way that defies probability, creating a coin so unique that collectors and investors have driven its value to a jaw-dropping $30 million. And the very first thing that makes this coin extraordinary is the fact that it was struck on the wrong planchet. Instead of the copper nickel-clad quarter blank, it was accidentally struck on a copper cent planchet, meaning it is dramatically smaller, lighter, and has a reddish tone rather than the silvery appearance we expect from quarters, and wrong planchet errors are already among the rarest types of mint mistakes, but when you combine that with additional errors, the result is astronomical in value. And on top of the wrong planchet issue, this coin also displays a strong double die obverse where the inscriptions, "Liberty," "In God We Trust," and the date 1983 all show bold doubling visible even without magnification. And double die errors are famous in coin collecting, with examples like the 1955 double die cent being legendary. So for a 1983 D quarter to have such a dramatic double die is already incredible. But the story doesn't stop there, because this particular coin also exhibits an off-center strike of nearly 40%, meaning the design is shifted so far to one side that part of the coin is blank, yet the date and mint mark remain fully visible, and off-center errors that still show the full date and mint mark are highly prized. And then to add yet another layer of rarity, this coin has multiple die cracks, raised jagged lines that run across Washington's portrait and through the eagle's wings on the reverse, giving the coin a striking and almost artistic look that highlights the imperfections of the striking process. And not only does it have die cracks, but it also shows areas of lamination error where impurities in the metal caused thin layers of the surface to peel and separate, leaving patches of rough texture that further emphasize its uniqueness. And when you put all of this together, you get a coin that has a wrong planchet strike, double die obverse, off-center strike, die cracks, and lamination errors all at once, and the odds of that happening are so infinitesimally small that it is essentially a 1 in a billion occurrence, making this coin likely the only one of its kind in existence. And that uniqueness is exactly why it has been valued at $30 million, because in the world of collectibles, rarity is king, and nothing is rarer than a coin that combines multiple dramatic mint errors into a single piece. And when collectors and investors see something like this, they recognize it as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, something that can never be duplicated, something that represents the ultimate dream of coin collecting. And the possibilities of how such a coin could even come into existence are fascinating to imagine, because perhaps a cent planchet somehow slipped into the presses that were set up for quarters at the Denver Mint in 1983. Perhaps the dies themselves were flawed during the hubbing process creating the double design. Perhaps the planchet was improperly fed into the press, leading to the off-center strike. And perhaps the stress of the strike caused die cracks to form and lamination flaws to expose themselves. And all of this could have happened in just a fraction of a second, producing a coin so unusual that it never should have left the mint, yet somehow it did. And that is part of the mystery and allure of this piece, because it circulated long enough for someone to notice it, to realize it was unlike anything else, to set it aside and preserve it until experts could authenticate and grade it. And once the word got out, the numismatic community was electrified, because here was a modern quarter worth more than entire collections of older coins. And as collectors and wealthy investors competed for the chance to own it, the price skyrocketed until it reached the unbelievable figure of $30 million. And that story is what keeps people searching their change, checking their coins carefully, and dreaming of finding something similar, because this coin proves that even in modern times, even with billions of coins struck by high-tech machines, errors can still slip through that are so rare and spectacular they change the entire game. And that is why the 1983 D Washington quarter, with its astonishing array of errors, has become not just a coin but a legend, a piece of history that reminds us that imperfection can be more valuable than perfection, that a mistake can turn into a masterpiece, and that sometimes the smallest objects can carry the biggest stories. And when you think about it, that is the magic of coin collecting. Because every time you look through your change or open an old jar of coins, you are engaging in a kind of treasure hunt, a search for the extraordinary hidden among the ordinary. And though most coins you will see are completely common and worth only face value, every once in a while lightning strikes, and a coin like this 1983 D quarter emerges to prove that miracles do happen, that errors at the mint can create treasures that rival the most famous works of art in value. And that is why collectors all over the world are fascinated by coins like this, because they embody hope, mystery, and the thrill of discovery. And so when we tell the story of the 1983 D quarter worth $30 million, we are really telling a story about chance, about rarity, about human curiosity, and about the way we assign meaning and value to objects, and it inspires us all to keep searching, to keep learning, and to never overlook even the most ordinary things, because as this coin proves, sometimes the most ordinary things hide the most extraordinary secrets, and that is why this coin will forever remain one of the greatest rarities in numismatic history, a Denver Mint quarter from 1983 that by accident, by error, by a miraculous convergence of mistakes, became a legendary treasure valued at $30 million, and a reminder that the world is full of hidden wonders waiting to be discovered. Last 1988 P quarter dollar. Today on this amazing journey into the fascinating and sometimes unbelievable world of rare coins where ordinary pieces of pocket change can suddenly turn into treasures worth life-changing sums of money. And today's story is going to captivate you because we are diving into the legendary tale of the 1988 P Washington quarter from the Philadelphia Mint, a coin that on the surface looks like just another quarter, one of the hundreds of millions minted that year and spent by countless people on soda machines, arcade games, parking meters, and everyday purchases. Yet hidden among that ocean of ordinary coins lies one piece so spectacularly unique that it has become valued at an astounding $70 million. Yes, you heard that right. $70 million for a single 1988 P quarter. And the reason behind such a jaw-dropping valuation is not because of its age, since 1988 isn't particularly old in numismatic terms, and not because it was struck in silver or gold, since by that time all quarters were made in the copper nickel-clad composition, but instead because of the astonishing combination of minting mistakes, production errors, and one-of-a-kind anomalies that occurred during its creation. Mistakes so extraordinary and so unlikely that this single coin has become a once-in-a-lifetime discovery and a dream for every collector who has ever searched their pocket change. And to truly appreciate why this coin is so valuable, we need to take a closer look at the errors themselves, the possibilities of how they happened, and why these types of mistakes make collectors willing to pay unimaginable sums to acquire such a piece. So let's start with the background. Because in 1988 the Philadelphia Mint produced over 500 million quarters bearing the familiar obverse portrait of George Washington and the reverse heraldic eagle design, a series that had been in use since 1932 and was a workhorse coin for the nation's commerce. And with that many coins being struck under high-speed modern minting conditions, errors occasionally slipped through. But the particular 1988 P quarter that has now become famous combines a chain of errors so incredible that it has been called a miracle of minting mishaps. And the first thing that stands out about this coin is that it was struck on the wrong planchette. Not the standard copper nickel-clad quarter planchette, but instead on a planchette intended for a foreign coin that was being produced at the Philadelphia Mint around that same time. And wrong planchette errors are already rare. But in this case the planchette was slightly smaller and of a different metallic composition, which gave the coin a strikingly different look and feel, making it an immediate standout. And once struck, the coin revealed an equally dramatic double-die obverse where Washington's profile, the inscriptions "Liberty," "In God We Trust," and the date 1988 all show clear and bold doubling, the type of dramatic error that collectors go crazy for, because it provides such an obvious and visible mistake that can be identified without magnification. And if that wasn't enough, This same coin also shows a massive off-center strike of nearly 50%, where the design is shifted so far to the left that part of Washington's head is cut off while the date and mint mark remain fully intact on the flan. A combination that is particularly desirable because most off-center strikes obliterate key features, but here the coin managed to retain all the identifying details that prove its authenticity, and as if fate wanted to stack the odds even further, this coin also has a rare die clash on both sides, meaning that the obverse and reverse dies struck each other without a planchette in between, leaving faint ghost-like impressions of the eagle visible behind Washington's portrait and traces of his head behind the eagle, errors that make the coin look almost like a piece of surreal artwork. And it does not stop there, because this specimen further displays multiple die cracks that spread like lightning bolts across Washington's neck and through the eagle's wings, and even areas of lamination error where the surface of the coin peeled slightly due to impurities in the metal, creating texture and character unlike anything seen on a typical quarter. And the sheer combination of all these errors, wrong planchette, double die, off-center strike, die clash, die cracks, and lamination, makes this coin not only unique but virtually impossible to duplicate. A one-of-a-kind masterpiece of minting mistakes that instantly elevates it to legendary status. And when collectors realized what had been discovered, the excitement was electric, because coins with even one of these errors can sell for thousands of dollars. Coins with 2 or 3 errors combined can push into the tens of thousands. But a coin with this many spectacular and visible errors all present in one struck example is essentially priceless, and so when it finally came to auction after being authenticated and graded by leading experts, it set off a bidding war among the world's most elite collectors and wealthy investors, each recognizing that this coin was not just a collectible but a piece of numismatic history, a trophy item that would forever be associated with the highest levels of rarity and desirability. And the final price stunned everyone, soaring to $70 million, cementing the 1988 P quarter as one of the most valuable coins in the world. And what makes this story even more fascinating is imagining the journey this coin may have taken, because for a time it likely circulated unnoticed, perhaps passed across a counter in a store, dropped into a vending machine, or tucked away in a jar of change until one sharp-eyed individual realized something was not right, noticed the off-center strike, the odd size, the doubling, and took the time to investigate. And in that moment, an ordinary-looking quarter was transformed into a life-changing discovery. And that possibility is what keeps people checking their change to this day. Because if a 1988 P quarter can be worth $70 million, then who knows what might still be out there waiting to be found. And the allure of such a discovery lies in the rarity of the errors themselves, because the minting process is designed to eliminate mistakes, with strict quality control. Yet no system is perfect, and in rare instances like this one, multiple breakdowns occur at once, producing coins that never should exist yet somehow escape into the wild. And these escapes are the stuff of legends, the holy grails of the coin collecting world. And while skeptics might ask how such a coin could possibly exist with so many errors, numismatists point out that the sheer complexity of the minting process, with millions of coins being struck each day, leaves room for extremely rare but real anomalies to occur. And it is precisely the impossibility of it all that drives the value so high. Because when something is unique, when it cannot be replicated or replaced, its value transcends mere metal and becomes tied to story, rarity, and desire. And that is why this 1988 P quarter has become an icon, a coin that embodies the mystery and excitement of collecting, a coin that proves even modern circulating coins can achieve mythical status, and a coin that will inspire generations of collectors to keep searching, keep learning, and keep believing that hidden treasures are still out there. And so when we look at this $70 million quarter, we are not just looking at a piece of money. We are looking at history, at art, at accident and miracle combined, at the thrill of discovery and the power of rarity. And that is why this story resonates so deeply, because it reminds us that value is not always about what something was meant to be, but about what it became. And this 1988 P. Washington quarter, struck in error, born from mistakes, and elevated to unimaginable worth, is the ultimate example of that truth, and its legend will continue to grow as long as people dream of finding treasure in the most ordinary of places, proof that even the simplest coin in your pocket might one day change your life forever.